Amateur Traveler, episode 849. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about windmills and wooden shoes, tulip fields and a presidential library, a great big lake, and a great big horse, as we go to Western Michigan. This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler. Let's talk about Western Michigan.
I'd like to welcome to the show Veronica Bareman from hipgrandmalife.com and veronicajunephotography.com. She's coming to us from Michigan, and that's in fact what we're talking about, Western Michigan. Veronica, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And why are we talking about Western Michigan today? What's your connection?
Oh, I have lived in Michigan my whole life. I am a born and bred Michigander, so I have seen all four corners, I guess, if you can call the Mitten State a four-cornered state.
I was going to say, I've heard people holding up their hand
Oh,
and
yes.
saying where they live. I haven't tried to put corners
Yes,
on
that's
it before.
definitely the Michigan thing. I was just at the Michigan Governor's Conference for Tourism, and I have never seen so many people holding up a hand and pointing where they're from. It was great. I was with my people.
So you say you've lived there your
Yeah,
whole life?
I've lived there my whole life, which is some years, many years. I'm a grandma now, I've been here for a while.
23, yeah.
And Michigan is just stunningly beautiful. We have all four seasons represented in fantastic ways. We have water, of course, everywhere. We're right in the center of the 5 Great Lakes. And so all around us is water. We have lots of water inside the state as well, but the big lakes are the Great Lakes. If you like outdoor recreation, we have skiing, we have our landscape. We have everything from not really giant mountains like you would find in the Rockies or anywhere, but we do have plenty of mountainous regions that will get you some good skiing. We have all the water sports. We have just about any sport you can imagine can be done here in Michigan. We have amazing food, of course. We're in America. Everywhere in America has some kind of amazing food, but I'm slightly partial to the West Michigan type of food. And we are Midwest friendly here in Michigan, and especially West Michigan. We're well known to be so welcoming, so friendly. People will talk to you anywhere and everywhere. So that's a good thing.
Excellent. Let's get into details. What kind of itinerary are you going to recommend for us?
I've got you flying into the Ford International Airport in Grand Rapids, and then we're going to work our way over to the lake shore. So we can start with the airport if you like. Okay. It's the Ford International Airport. It's the second largest airport in Michigan after the Detroit Metropolitan Wayne County Airport. We have several airlines that use this airport. It's small compared to Chicago or Atlanta, but it serves a variety of airlines, including we have Delta, American, United, Southwest, Spirit, and you can fly anywhere out of Grand Rapids. You usually land in a hub, Chicago, Atlanta, Washington, somewhere, but you can get there starting here. And it's only probably about a half hour from the airport into the heart of downtown Grand Rapids. And Grand Rapids, amazing city to explore. So once you...
And
go ahead.
What are we going to do in Grand Rapids since we're starting there?
So many things to do in Grand Rapids. First of all, you need a place to stay. The Amway Grand Plaza Hotel in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's been around for quite some time. It started in 1913 as the Pantland Hotel and then grew in huge popularity. In the late 70s, the Pantland Hotel was purchased by Amway Corporation. Amway Corporation is a big name in West Michigan, and they purchased it and renamed it to the Amway Grand Plaza Hotel. And so it's been here since late 70s all the way up till today as Amway Grand Plaza. It's huge, it's beautiful, it's opulent. My high school prom was at the Amway Grand Plaza. It goes way back to those days, and the rooms are lovely. It's a tall, unique building in the center of Grand Rapids that has a very interesting architectural shape. I can't tell you much about that shape other than it's square and tall and it has a slanted roof, but you'll see it. And so it gives gorgeous views. If you stay in a room, ask for a room high up, and you can see the whole city from one of those rooms, and it's just beautiful. And you'll be treated wonderfully at the Amway. There's no question about that. You get great service there and treated like kings and queens. But once you're settled in, you've slept, you had your breakfast, you're ready to roll. We have museums in Grand Rapids. If you're into art, we have the Grand Rapids Art Museum. We have the Gerald R. Ford Presidential Museum. We have the Grand Rapids Public Museum, and we have a children's museum. All these museums within walking distance from one another, or
Well, let's get into those in a little more
sure.
detail then. You mentioned the art museum.
Yes.
Is there a particular thing the art museum is great for? Is it modern art? Is it classical art?
A little bit of everything. There's
Okay.
collections on African art, Asian art, Native American art, so you can explore outside of what we typically would look at. They have works from the Renaissance, the Baroque period, Impressionist, modern art, contemporary art. There's samplings
Okay.
of everything. You can spend as much time or as little time as you want in each of those little niche areas, but it's a beautiful museum. They do change out some of their exhibits, of course, and keep an eye on the website. You can see which exhibits are coming in and which ones are going out, different artists that make their way in.
Okay. And then you said the Gerald R. Ford. That's also going to be a presidential
Yes,
library then
Presidential
as
Library and
well.
Museum. Absolutely.
Ford being from
Yes,
Michigan.
Gerald R. Ford was
Okay.
from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Did not know he was from Grand
Well, there
Rapids.
you
Okay.
go. You learned something new today. Yep, they currently have an exhibit there that explores the Watergate situation, and
Interesting.
that is a little bit before my time, so yay, I'm too young for something. And
I'm not.
it's a
So.
great exhibit to learn for someone like me. It's a great exhibit to learn about. It talks about how that scandal changed politics and changed the presidential story in our history.
Sure.
So that's pretty slick. It's a beautiful museum. You wouldn't want to spend a whole day there. I would say a half a day, 3-4 hours. You can see just about everything. They have the limousine there that was part of the attempted.
Oh, you say attempted. Was this the one he was in with the assassination
Yes,
attempt?
the assassination attempt on him.
Okay.
This is the one that he was in. So
Squeaky Frome, I think, was who tried to kill Ford, if I remember correctly.
that sounds right to me. And
Okay.
this speaks for itself. I'm not great at presidential history. I'm not terribly big into politics. And I love that museum. There's so much to see and do. So even if your thought is, that's political stuff, I don't want to see that. There's plenty to see there. Plenty that will keep you busy.
Yeah, I find the presidential libraries can be quite interesting, and I'd say all of the ones that I've been to half-day sends about 2 to 4 hours, depending on how much you like music.
Exactly. How much time do you want to spend reading
Yep.
and learning, and how much time do you want to whiz through and just
Yep.
take a look at everything? You can spend as much or as little as you want, but 3-4 hours, you should be able to see just about everything and get a pretty comprehensive view of what you want to find out.
And then you had at least a third one that I've
Oh,
lost
that's
track of
okay.
already.
The Grand Rapids Public Museum, that's probably my favorite. That museum's been there.
Okay.
That museum is phenomenal. We have a planetarium, Roger B. Chaffee Planetarium. So if you're into the space scene and you want to learn about the stars, the planetarium is fantastic. They also have a 1928 Spillman carousel there, which is operating and running. So you can get right on. I think it's like a token. So it's like $1 for a token, and you can use the token, which is also a cool little treasure to see. And the animals are all hand carved. There's a lot of history in the making of that. And there are only a few of the Spillman carousels that even are remaining in the world. So that's a pretty big drawing for people that are into carousels. And it's fun to ride.
And I don't know, I know carousel. I wasn't born yesterday, as we've already established. Does Spillman have a connection to Grand Rapids? I don't really know who we're talking about.
I don't believe it's a particular connection. I
Okay.
think it's just a hugely collectible piece that they were able to bring
Cool.
in. Don't quote me on that. Somebody may correct me on that, but that's my answer, and I'm holding to it.
Okay.
There's also, when you enter in, you'll see a giant whale skeleton hanging from the ceiling, so you can get the idea of the size of a whale. There's everything in that museum. Probably my favorite is the walkway that takes you down an early 1800s street. So when you walk into that section, you feel like you're in the 1800s, and you look into the shops, and you can see there's even one of those giant bicycles with the huge wheel on the front, little wheel on the back. You can get on it
Okay.
and check that out. It's like the brick roads that were made back in those early 1800s that are just fun to walk on, and they have it lit with candlelight lanterns and lamps, so it has the feel of an evening walking through those streets. So that's really cool. Grand Rapids history is that is a furniture building. And so there's a whole section
Oh, interesting.
in the museum that
Okay.
kind of speaks to the history of Grand Rapids and how the furniture industry has started there and grown over the years.
And I assume that's related to lumbering
Yes,
nearby in
that's
Michigan?
correct. Yep.
Okay, got it.
Yep. And we have lakes. We have the Grand River, which did a lot of transportation of the lumber in the lumber industry. And
Got it.
of course,
Okay.
with our big lakes and things being shipped around and such. Yes.
Okay.
So lots of education there. They also have exhibits that come and go. Recently, they had a Jim Henson. There we go. I almost forgot his name for a minute. Jim Henson and the Muppets. So that was really cool to go in and you could actually see some of the Muppets and learn about Jim Henson and the history. That was a traveling one though, so it was there and it's gone again. But keep an eye on their website, and
Okay.
they always have some compelling exhibit in there that's really unique and interesting. And then
Got it.
if you're visiting Grand Rapids in the summer, we have you heard of Art Prize, Chris?
I know both those words, but not the
Okay,
combination.
the Art Prize is an international art competition, and people literally come from all over the country to exhibit their art in this competition. And if you're an exhibitor, anybody can enter. If you've created something really cool, you can enter. You just fill out the application, and you do have to find a business in Grand Rapids that will host your work of art. You get your piece of
Oh,
art
interesting.
into
Okay.
that business. It works to helps the business helps the artist. It's a huge festival of fun in Grand Rapids, and all the West Michigan people know about Art Prize. And you can go and spend days wandering around, looking at the various art projects, seeing what's out there, getting a craft brew, taking your time and sitting and relaxing, spending time exploring the little streets. It's really a brilliant model of business, art,
So
all.
if I come and I'm not exhibiting, I get a map of which
Yes.
businesses are hosting which. Oh, got
Yes,
it.
you
Okay.
can get a
So
map.
it's public
Yes,
art.
and you can
Interesting.
wander, and of course, you'll get information about the artists. And 2 or 3 years ago, the winning piece is one of my favorites. After it won, it became a bumper sticker around Michigan that was really popular. They took a photograph of the Northern Lights and they superimposed it onto a giant cutout silhouette of the state of Michigan
Okay.
with the UP and the Lower Peninsula. And it was just
Hmm.
magnificent. And it was photography, it was art, it was all the things, and it was beautiful. And the winner wins by the people's vote. So
Okay.
that's unique and fun too, that you get a say in who the winner is.
And does it run all summer or 1 week, or how long does that
Oh
run?
gosh, I knew you were going to ask me some question that I didn't study. It runs in the summer, and I'm going to say it's about a month long, but I can't tell you the exact dates. I can tell you if you go to artprize.com, you can find out the exact information.
It is September 14th through October
Look at you.
1st, so it's
So it's
early
2 weeks
fall.
in the early fall. So there you go.
Yep, this year
Yes.
at least. Excellent. Where to
Okay,
next?
so now you've spent a day at the museum. Maybe you've come to see the art prize. You cannot come to Grand Rapids area without going to see the Frederick Meyer Gardens and Sculpture Park. Have you heard of this one?
I just assume I haven't heard of
Okay.
it.
All right. We got to get you to Grand Rapids.
There's a reason why I'm not doing this show without you.
We'll have to get you to West Michigan. The Frederick Meyer Gardens and Sculpture Park is amazing. It's 158 acres. It's a botanical garden, an art museum, outdoor sculpture park. It opened in 1995, so it's relatively new in the world of sculpture
Okay.
parks and arts. It's named after Frederick Meyer, who is the founder of Meyer Supermarkets, which are very well
Okay.
known in the upper Midwest. Fred and Lena Meyer are the founders and fantastic people, very well known to give back to the community. The gardens as it is now has beautiful Japanese gardens. It has over 200 works of sculpture and art throughout, set inside and outside, so you can wander. There's children's section. One of my favorite exhibits is the Da Vinci's horse, which was designed originally by Da Vinci, but it was never constructed. So after the gardens opened, the design was taken and created, and this horse stands, gosh, 4 or 5 stories high. It's just magnificently huge. He has his front paw, or not paw, hoof. Horses have hooves, not paws. He has his front hoof
That is true.
lifted, and you can stand underneath. That's how tall he is. So that's fantastic.
And I'm embarrassed to say that there is a blog post on Amateur Traveler about the Frederick Meyer Gardens, and until you said the Da Vinci horse, I didn't remember that. Okay.
There you go. See? But the Da Vinci horse is one of the things that made them, or was very well talked about in the early days. So I'm not surprised, because most people do make that association. My favorite part is every spring from, oh gosh, I believe it's the end of March to the end of April, is the Dorothy Fichter Butterflies Are Blooming display, where they have a huge greenhouse area and they just pack it full of tropical butterflies. It's so educational. You get to walk through a garden area on your way into the butterfly gardens, where you'll see cacti, plants, greenery, trees from all different conditions. Right before you get in, we have an area where there's monarch butterflies, which are pretty universal across the states, not tropical, so to speak, but you can see the caterpillars. They have them like flying around in little displays, and there's volunteers and docents there that will point out to you where you can see the chrysalis, the cocoon, all that pieces. And so you can see, and sometimes if you're lucky, you'll get to see a butterfly burst out of his cocoon while you're there. Not that, I wouldn't plan on that, but if you're lucky. And then you get into the tropical section, where they just have butterflies floating free everywhere. If you're lucky, one might land on you. I have a funny story about the butterfly gardens. I'm a photographer, and several years ago, each year they host an event at the butterfly gardens where, as a photographer, you can get a ticket to come at a private time where they have a limited number of people, all photographers, just to take photos of the butterflies. It's usually on a Sunday morning before the exhibit opens. So I took the trek from my house there. It's about an hour from where I live. Got there, was excited, got in, was with 10 other photographers. We had the whole place to ourselves. It was fantastic. Taking pictures, and this family kind of entered the gardens, and one of the other photographers became agitated. There are people in here, and we paid to have this private showing of these butterflies. You could just see she was getting upset. So she marched over to the folks that were there, and they had an old grandma in a wheelchair. And she said to them, "Excuse me, this is a private showing, and you're not supposed to be in here. This is a private showing. We're here as photographers." And I saw all this happening, and I felt really bad, because here's this aged woman in the wheelchair. And I thought, I don't know, maybe they just needed a time when it wasn't busy for her. And so they politely smiled and said, "Okay, thank you."
And was this Dorothy Fichter?
This was Lena Meyer of the Meyer Gardens. The great part is I had no idea who she was, and I felt sorry for them. So I walked over after this lady was rude, and I said, "Gosh, all these photographers here. Has anybody offered to take a family portrait of you? I'd love to take a picture with you." And at this time, little grandma had a butterfly on her fingertip. And they said, "Oh, that'd be great. Thank you." So they all lined up, and I took pictures, and I said, "Just write down your email address and I'll send it to you." And the guy slipped me his business card, and it was one of the two sons of Fred and Lena Meyer that was there with mom. And she passed in 2022 at 102 years old. So she was well into her 90s when she was there visiting. So I had no idea I was taking a picture of Lena Meyer, who's quite famous in this part of the world. But it just goes to show you never know who you're talking to. So before you chastise somebody, she could have thrown us all right out of there. But this woman thought it was her place to tell them to get out on our private ticket. But yes, the Meyer Gardens is amazing. And I've gone every year to the butterfly gardens since my kids were little. I've taken them. Now I go just by myself, because the butterflies are beautiful and there's always something new to learn. And if you finish the gardens and you looking for something to do, just down the road, we do have an IMAX theater. So you can head for the IMAX theater, see something big. And between the gardens and the IMAX theaters, we have so many excellent places to eat. I can't even list them. You just drive down that way and you'll see we have Asian cuisine and steakhouses. And
do you have a favorite? You don't have to list all of them. List one of them.
We have one called the Melting Pot, and I'm not even sure if that's a big
Yep.
chain, but I love the Melting Pot.
There is a chain
Okay,
called
it's
the Melting
fondue.
Pot.
Is that the one?
Yep,
Okay.
that's
Yeah,
the
I
one.
probably could have chosen better, but I have to tell you, I do the fondue, so that's a good one for me. And then if you're looking for a place for dinner and you need to head back down towards downtown to get back to your hotel, I do have a favorite restaurant in downtown Grand Rapids. It's not right there on that drive, but on your way back. And it's called the Green Well.
Okay.
And the Green Well it's a vegan restaurant. I'm not vegan, but it's fantastic. So you don't have to be vegan to
Okay.
eat vegan occasionally. Very creative, very flavorful. The chef is excellent. Very laid back, casual atmosphere. They do have a full bar, so it's a great place to go and try something new and different. You can get small plates or you can get an actual entree, have a drink, have a cocktail, and relax before you head back to your hotel. So we've made it through 2 days in our
Okay.
itinerary. Whew.
Whew.
Now you get to take a
Okay.
sleep. And day 3 in the Grand Rapids area is Animal Day. So we have the John Ball Zoo. It
Okay.
formerly was called the John Ball Park Zoo, but they dropped the park some years ago, and it's now just the zoo. And that zoo has been here since 1891. So this makes it the oldest zoo in West Michigan. There's over 1,000 animals there:
Okay.
lions, tigers, bears, gorillas, elephants, all the standards. They also have camels, and you can feed the camels. So if you've never fed a camel, definitely worth doing. They have some sensory exhibits. One of them is stingrays, so you can feed the stingrays and touch the stingrays. So that's really cool.
I have ridden camels, I have raced camels, but I have not fed camels.
Now you get your chance. I think they might have giraffes that you can feed as well. I'm trying to remember. The last time I was there, I
Okay.
took my grandson, and I remember it was either the,
I would think a long black tongue would be fairly
yes, I don't know if that was a one time, like a visiting giraffe, or if they actually have that. I'm sorry, that's another one
Got
I've
it.
fallen short on detail. But there's plenty to see and do there. We love the monkeys. They have an open air monkey area where you can watch the little monkeys swinging from the trees and talking to one another and doing all the things that monkeys do. So that's a fun part. Last year, they had a huge Lego display of life size animals that were all created of Legos that were throughout the whole zoo area. So that was fun to see. They have an Australia section with wallaby, or not wallabies, kangaroos, and what's the other smaller version of kangaroo? Is it a
Koalas?
wallaby? It is a
Oh,
wallaby.
wallaby is the
I
smaller
got
version.
it. So that's fun. You can check those out. And then they have a ropes course, like through the trees, and a zip line. There's just, you can spend a day.
I'm seeing more zoos having zip lines and ropes courses, and I think that's interesting. It makes sense to me for some reason, and I don't know why I associate the two, but it seems like it's just a way to expand the offering and attract other people who weren't zoo people before.
I think so. And I think in my case, I've raised 5 kids, and there's a 15-year span between my oldest and the youngest. And the zoo is great. It
That's a
is. In the
challenge.
zoo, when they add things like
Yeah,
this, maybe I have a 16-year-old with me and a 2-year-old. The 2-year-old's not going to do the ropes course,
yeah,
but the 16-year-old isn't going to be all that
no.
excited about looking at a penguin. So
At the
exactly,
petting zoo,
and they
yeah,
do have
no.
petting zoo at this zoo. So I think
Yep,
that's a really clever way for them to bring some things in for
yep.
everybody. And I'm not going to do the ropes course or the zip
Interesting.
line, but my teenagers would love it. So that's perfect. They do have a place to eat, so you can spend a whole day there. You can find something to eat. You can bring home a stuffed toy or some zoo paraphernalia if you'd like. They also have a lot of educational programming at this zoo. And so if you do your homework ahead of time, you can get behind the scenes and see some of the zoo care. They do have 2 bald eagles in residence that have been rescued and have injuries that cannot be set back out into the wild. So you can learn about them. There's just all kinds of opportunity there. But my favorite thing and my favorite memory of the John Ball Zoo, because I've been going there since I was a kid myself, is there is a giant bronze statue of John Ball when you enter the zoo, and it's been there since the zoo opened. It's open for climbing. So you will see this statue of
Okay.
John Ball with 2 of his children, and he's sitting in sitting position with his children standing, and you can climb onto his lap. And part of West Michigan culture, Anybody that's grown up in this area has a picture of themselves sitting in John Ball's lap at the zoo in the giant bronze sculpture. So if you come here and you bring anybody or yourself want to climb into his lap, have at it. You'll just be part of the community if you sit in John Ball's lap. So there you
All
have
right
that.
then.
This episode of Amateur Traveler is sponsored by Prisma Text. You want to learn a foreign language because you know it will make your travel better, but it's too hard. Prisma Text gives you a different way to effortlessly learn a language. You read a story, you learn a language. When you go to prismatext.com, you can download a book and then choose how many of the words in the book are translated into the language you're trying to learn. So as you're reading, say, Agatha Christie, you get more and more Spanish words included in until you find yourself learning Spanish without even thinking about it. They have more than 400 different vocabulary words per book, and Prisma Text has found that it's 50% more effective than traditional language acquisition methods. You can choose from one of 16 different languages. Want to learn French while reading biographies, or maybe German with your favorite sci-fi book? It's up to you. Instead of setting aside time to study a language, instead you can practice just by doing what you want to do, reading your favorite book. To learn more, visit prismatext.com and select from hundreds of titles to start learning a language from your favorite stories. To save 20% off your first order, you can use the code AMATEUR, AMATEUR. And thanks to Prismatext for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
And then you've spent the day at the zoo. You're hungry. You need something to eat. Check out The Bob, which is in downtown Grand Rapids, just a stone's throw away, probably 5 minutes by car, which we do have Uber and Lyft and all of those things. If you're flying in and you need transportation, there's also a transit system in downtown Grand Rapids. And in addition to the bigger transit system, they have the Dash system, which is trolleys and smaller, and they have a very particular route that hits all the museums and some of the little side exhibits.
Got it. And is that a free shuttle
Dash?
bus?
Yes, Dash is
free to
the
ride.
free one, and the larger transit, there's a small fee for that. But the Dash system is a smaller design to
Shuttle
get you
system.
from one
Yep.
attraction to the next. And there's maps and stuff that
Got it.
spell it all out for you, make it, it's
I'll
real
include a
easy.
link to the maps in the show
That's
notes.
perfect. And then, so head to the Bob. The Bob is a 13-story building, and Bob,
I
it
understand
is
it's
a big old building. You got it. That's what BOB stands for, big old building. So you see, I can't assume you know nothing because you have done some looking.
I can Google with the rest of them.
Yeah, the Bob is fantastic. All kinds of places to eat inside of there. You can spend your evening dancing the night away. There's all different kinds of music represented. They even have a comedy club. So the Bob is worth your while.
So the Bob is not one restaurant, but a
Yes,
collection
it's a
of
collection of
venues.
restaurants and experiences with all different kinds of cuisine. It has a full bar. You can go from place to place while you're in the building and explore. Get your drink here, go have an appetizer there, type situation. Very popular. And they have a comedy club. That's always fun to end the night at the comedy club, especially after you've had a couple of glasses of something. It's even funnier.
Okay.
If you're not into the big scene of the Bob, Brick and Porter, 123 Tavern, the Greenwell, which we talked about a minute ago, Social Misfits. These are some of my favorites in the downtown area. Different cuisines, burgers, steak, seafood, pasta. Brick and Porter is a gastropub. They have craft beers on tap, so you can have casual fare there. Burgers, pizza, salad, that type of thing. Social Misfits is more of a coffee shop. They have cocktails and small plates, so that's more of a maybe lighter fare situation.
They say waffles
That's
for breakfast,
right.
lunch, and dinner.
Chicken and waffles, that's a thing these days, I guess.
I never turn up my
I
nose
like
at
a
a
waffle.
so-
I have not been brave enough to try the chicken and waffle because in my mind, chicken and waffles don't go. But I've been told by many people that they are wonderful together. Have you?
Yeah, I've had chicken and waffles.
Did you
It was
put syrup
fun.
on your chicken?
No, actually, I think I ended up with syrup of the chicken, as I recall.
Yeah, see,
But yeah,
syrup on my
not my favorite way to eat either chicken or waffles, but it was fine. I'm sure it was a press
yeah.
trip or something like that, and we
Maybe
were
if they
served chicken and
served them
waffles,
on two
but I
plates,
enjoyed
I
it.
could
So,
do that. But it seems a strange combo to me. But then so does a shrimp taco seem a strange combo. And there are many people that love the shrimp taco. So they're actually very good. They just seem
yep.
strange. Okay. On to the next day. Now we're going to move you down on the road to Holland, Michigan, which is on the lake shore, about a half hour west of Grand Rapids. So head on over to Holland. Holland
Okay.
is hometown for me, so I'm a little bit more well versed in what we can find in Holland. We have a Max bus system once you get to Holland that you can take. The Max bus will take you right around to all of the important places in Holland. And that is very minimal cost. It is not free, but it is very minimal. I want to say it's 50 cents to hop on and then hop off wherever you need to. Not a big price.
Okay.
But you'll need a place to stay when you move to Holland. You won't want to stay in Grand Rapids. You'll want to find a new place. And I totally love and recommend the City Flats Hotel in downtown Holland. It is on, I believe it's between 6th and 7th Street in downtown Holland. So walking distance from everything in the downtown area. Tons of places to eat, tons of shops. It's right just a quick minute by walking over to the Civic Center. If you are in town on a Wednesday or a Saturday, we have a beautiful farmers market right downtown. You can walk to just about anywhere.
Now, I feel like you're burying the lead with Holland, that there's a reason why it has that name that I might
You
notice
might
when I
notice
get
when you
there.
get here, we are a very Dutch culture, settled by Albertus van Raalte many years ago, and
Okay.
very Dutch population, Dutch everything, Dutch people, Dutch food. In the springtime, which is coming up in just a couple of weeks, is the very famous, world-renowned Holland Dutch tulip time with millions of visitors every year. 20% of our visitors come from all over the world. So if you have
Now I feel like you're pitching it correctly there.
now, yes, I'm not gonna lie. Tulip time, that has my heart. I love tulip time. It's such a down home Midwestern way to enjoy your time, but the tulips are gorgeous. There's millions of tulips. You get different numbers wherever you ask. So the last reasonable number I heard was over 6 million tulips planted in town. And it's true, they're everywhere. The city plants them down the edges of the streets. So anywhere you drive, they're called tulip lanes, and you can get a map of all of the streets in town that have these tulips just planted, and they're all different colors and shapes. There'll be like a section of red tulips, and then the next section will be yellow tulips, and then the next section will be tall orange tulips, and the next section short purple tulips. They're just everywhere. They're gorgeous to photograph.
So I guess I was picturing more like if I go up north of Seattle, for instance, where they have tulips, they're growing them
No,
commercially. But some of these are not people growing tulips to
these
sell me so much as
they
public
are
art.
public art. They are you can buy tulips when
Huh.
you're at tulip time. Make no mistake. Yes,
I would hope so.
but the city just plants them everywhere.
Hmm.
And then we celebrate Dutch culture around the tulips at their peak bloom, which is
Okay.
the first full week in May every year is tulip time. And only one time in 25 years of living in Holland have we ever not had tulips. They bloomed early and they were all done by tulip time. And the city has such a sense of humor and such good natured spirit that we dubbed it the STEM Fest that year. And all the activities went
Still
on as
fast.
normal. And they even sold T-shirts that said STEM Fest, which I believe my husband still has that in his drawer somewhere. But yeah, they do such a great job of planting them that right now, if you go downtown, I was just downtown today, there's tulips in bloom now, and they will bloom all the way through. The peak bloom will be that first big week in May. And it's just stunning. You can't not find tulips in Holland. They're just everywhere. And there's displays of them. Because of the Dutch culture, during tulip time, they close off the main street, and we have Dutch dancers that dance Every couple of hours, there's a schedule
Okay.
that goes out. And yes, I was a Dutch dancer for a time, so I practiced. And it's a 17-minute dance, and the dancers wear genuine wooden shoes from Holland. And they make a
Okay.
delightful sound when they're clumping in the streets. So once you've heard it, it's an amazing sound. And yes, you got to catch the Dutch dancers.
Okay.
That's free. Looking at the tulips is free. We have the Windmill Island Gardens, which is tulips everywhere. Their peak bloom is not until the end of July for other flowers. So they have a dual life. They have the tulip
Oh,
time
interesting.
crowd that comes in to see all the tulips, and then they take the tulip bulbs
Yeah.
out, because the life of a tulip, once it's done blooming, is you remove the bulb and plant something else in its place. So they
Yep.
replant. The gardens has their peak time at the end of July. But like I say, two lives, tulip time and then after. But during tulip time, they also have activities, they have shops. The Windmill Island Gardens is very well known for Deswan Windmill, which is their huge windmill that was exported directly from the Netherlands in 1964. It was the last windmill to be exported from the Netherlands, and it was brought here in parts and reassembled in Holland, Michigan. And it is a working windmill. You can buy flour that is ground in the windmill. You can take a tour inside the windmill. So you
Okay.
can go in and walk up several stories and see all of the working components. And the best part is our windmill, Deswan, is run by a woman miller who is the only woman miller in the world. And she was trained in the Netherlands, and of the association of millers that do this job, she is the only woman. So it's really cool. It's really cool. And it's really worth, she's beautiful to look at. She's great to go inside of, and there's so much information. We're
We're now
talking about the
talking about the
windmill
windmill.
inside of Windmill Island Garden,
Okay.
not the
Not the
mill.
miller. Yes. Okay.
Yes, don't go inside of the miller.
She's
She frowns
beautiful to
on
look
that.
at. She's beautiful to look at, and I thought, oh, that's very nice that she's saying that.
I
You
did.
switched there,
Sorry,
and it
I
was
get
not
excited when I talk about the windmill. But Windmill Island Gardens is just outside of our downtown area, so all within walking distance of that space. As long as we're talking tulip time and Dutch culture, there is Nellis's Dutch Village, which is not walking distance, but it's about 5 minutes by car. And again, Uber, Lyft, your own car, or the Max bus will get you there. Nellis's Dutch Village is a family-owned, I think they call it a theme park. It has all the Dutch culture. They have
Okay.
tulips, of course, everywhere. There's little waterways that run through the park. It looks like you've stepped into the Netherlands when you go into Dutch Village. And there's displays that talk about the culture of the Dutch people. And there's lots of things to do for family fun. If you have kids with you, there's a carousel, working carousel. A few years ago, they added a giant Ferris wheel that looks like a windmill. Like the base of the Ferris wheel looks like the bottom of a windmill. And then there's blades on the actual Ferris wheel that make it look like it's a windmill turning. So that's really cool. They have a petting zoo area. Unfortunately, last summer they had a very tragic fire that burned down the barn with the petting zoo animals in it. Fortunately, I believe they said all but a couple of bunnies got out of the barn before it burned to the ground. So
Okay.
let's not panic. We did okay. The animals made it out. There's a little business next door, and somebody was coming out to their parking lot and saw smoke and called 911. And other people from that business came out, and they rushed over and they helped get the animals out of the barn as it was burning. So good people.
And you were saying rides for kids and such. I'm getting the impression of early elementary preschool is a target age for this. You having a range of kids have had the taking the 2-year-old and the teenager to this at the same time. It's
I would say the sweet spot is, yeah, you've got it. I would say kindergarten, young elementary. That will keep the young ones busy. There's plenty to do if you're interested in learning about the culture and you'd like to look around. There's other displays
Got
throughout.
it. Okay.
And then there's a whole section of shops that you can go through. So if you like souvenirs, there's books. They have a bakery in there where you can see them making Dutch goods. There's a restaurant called the Hungry Dutchman, where you can get Dutch food, pea soup, pigs in the blanket, things of that nature. So you can taste the actual Dutch food. So
Okay.
I would say a half a day. If you've got young kids or medium kids,
Okay.
a half a day. If you're adults only, it's still a great place. You probably spend a little bit less time there, but you're still going to get plenty of opportunity to see really cool things and learn and get some culture. So that's a good
Okay.
one. And then there's one
Got
third
it.
place that I would recommend a stop in, and that's your Tulip Farms, which is further, it's a little bit further out. It's about a 10-minute drive out. But they have, at tulip time, they have rows and rows. You've seen the pictures of rows of tulips, like from the Netherlands. They
Yep.
duplicate that there. So if you want to see rows of tulips, that's where you want to go.
Got it. This was
Yes,
more what I
that
was
is one.
expecting
That's not even
when
in
you
the
started
downtown
describing. Yep.
area,
Got
though.
it.
So it's something available,
Sure.
but it's not in the main section. But that is the place where you can also go if you found a
Yep.
tulip that you think is beautiful and you want to grow that at home. You go to Veldier, they will help you find the tulip bulbs and they will ship them directly back to your house.
Yep.
So you can plant them with instructions. You can
Okay.
plant them and have your own tulips grow up in the spring. And they also, at Veldier, they have a
Got it.
demonstration of actually carving the wooden shoes. You can purchase wooden shoes directly. They bring them in from Holland. They don't have enough staff to make them there, but they demonstrate how it's done. And then you can
Okay.
buy the wooden shoes, have your name carved in them for free. And they also have a Delft pottery. Are you familiar with Delftware from the Netherlands? They actually have a Delft factory, and you can watch them working on the Delft and learn about how that process is and purchase pieces from there. It's beautiful. Those are the three main attractions for especially tulip time, but they are all open all summer. So you don't want to miss them no matter when you're here, but they're also very busy at tulip time. If you're looking for more leisurely,
Okay.
come after tulip time. You might not get the tulips, but you'll get the experience. Okay?
Okay.
So, gosh,
Got
we've
it.
covered that. How about a day at the beach? Holland, Michigan, we have beach. If you're here in the summer, anytime in the summer,
Okay.
pristine beach on the shore of Lake Michigan. The sand is very light colored, beautiful, soft sand. You walk in it, it's so soft on your feet. I could just play with my toes in the sand all day. Holland State Park is a large public beach area with a large parking area, so you can pull right up, just walk a couple minutes down to the beach and you're right there. They do have some accessible beach mats and some beach wheelchairs. So if that's something that you need, they have those available for use. It is a state park, so you need to have a state park access or pay to get in the state park fee to get into the beach. But once you're in, you're there for as many hours as you'd like. It's a day pass. They do have a concession
Okay.
stand there, so if you need a snack, but we're in favor of toting a cooler in and picnic lunching. You can swim, you can sit
All
on the
right.
sand, lay in the sun. They have volleyball courts, they have a play center there for kids. But the best part is we have Big Red Lighthouse, which is known in this part of the state. Everybody loves Big Red. She's a beautiful lighthouse painted all bright red. And she sits right at the end of the channel from Lake Michigan into Lake Makatawa. And there's a little channel between. So you can sit along that channel and just watch the boats go in and out from the big lake into the small Lake Makatawa. And that's really just such a lovely, peaceful place to just spend your time sitting in the sand right along that channel, watching the boats. And you see everything from jet skis and wave runners to great big yachts. Sometimes you'll see a barge coming in and out. So pretty cool.
Okay. Excellent. Anything else you want to recommend as
Let's
part of your
see.
itinerary here? It feels like we're wrapping this up.
Yeah, I think we're just about all of it. I would say if you have an extra time to head down towards Saugatuck, which is just about 20 minutes south of Holland, right along the lakeshore. It's a beautiful drive. Head on down to Saugatuck. If you like the arts, Saugatuck is extremely inclusive and very artsy neighborhood. Art galleries galore, restaurants galore, very LGBTQ friendly. Lots of things to do on the outside. There's beaches, there's tiny beaches all along in between there. There's much to do
Okay.
and places to eat, things to do. Anywhere along the lakeshore, you're gonna find gorgeous scenery, beautiful dunes, beautiful sand. In fact, Saugatuck Dunes State Park, you can climb dunes, slide down them. Fantastic. So I think But I think other than that, I think we've covered it. We have orchards over here. Southwest Michigan is very well known for its wine culture. So if you've made your way down to Saugatuck, South Haven area, you can explore. In fact, there's a brand new business called the Bottle Run, which is a boutique wine tour where you can pay for an all-inclusive experience where they will drive you to 3 or 4 of our local wineries, and they will feed you, they will transport you, they do all the heavy lifting. You just get in the car with the lovely chauffeur driver and he just takes you around, and you get to experience all the local wineries, local tastes. It's fantastic. That's a brand new business, and I'm going to take my first wine tour in about 3 weeks, so I'm looking forward to that.
Got it. Before we get into my wrap-up questions, anything else that people should know before they go to Western Michigan? Your favorite day of the year, for instance, for being in Western Michigan? I know you got to choose because you get the art at one time and you get the tulips at another time.
That's such a terrible question. I don't know if I can choose a favorite.
I know.
I do love springtime. I think springtime in West Michigan is my favorite.
Okay.
It's just beautiful coming out of the winter, which is dark and very cold. If you're a winter person and you love winter activities, there's lots of them. But I just like that feeling of rebirth and spring.
And you had some winter this year. Unlike the East Coast that was doing the year without winter.
You never know
had
what
a
you're going to
little
get
more.
in Michigan. One winter we'll have 10 feet of snow accumulated, and the next winter we'll have barely a dusting. One year we had a polar vortex and they shut school down for 2 or 3 weeks in a row, simply because the temperatures were so cold. They didn't want the kids out waiting for buses, and you just never know what you're going to get. And up in the UP, they have ice climbing events, and there's a lot to be said for winter activities if you're into that. But I like spring. I like coming out of winter.
Excellent.
I like the feeling of it. So I guess that's why I'm partial to tulip time, because it's such a spring.
And for those of you who didn't listen to our episode on the UP or the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, we've got a whole nother episode about Mackinac Island and the UP, but we won't talk about that this time.
Yes, Mackinac Island. We won't talk about that.
If I had you in Western Michigan at the prettiest spot in Western Michigan, where are you standing? What are you looking
I
at?
am standing at the top of Mount Pisgah, which is a Holland attraction. It's free. It's 263 steps, I believe, or 242, 200 and some. From the bottom to the top, it's a wooden staircase that goes all the way up. You stand at the top. You look out over Lake Michigan to the west. To the east, you can look out over Lake Macatawa. If you come in the springtime, you can see the flowers and the trees all starting to bloom, and you can see miles. If you go at nighttime on a day when there's going to be a super moon, you can watch the moon come up over Lake Macatawa from this top of a dune situation. It's amazing. That's my favorite place.
I can tell how much I am not a Michigander because I was looking at a map and I see that the lake that you've been talking about, which empties out into Lake Michigan, basically the river expands into a lake and then it connects. And I almost asked you, now is that freshwater or is it brackish? And then I realized
It is.
it's all freshwater. So I'm definitely one of those coastal people that forgets that there are these great big seas,
It's funny.
inland seas. We
They
call them
are,
lakes.
and-
They're really inland seas. And they hold a huge percentage of the freshwater in the world.
We like to say
but they're fresh.
unsalted and shark-free. Yep, unsalted and shark-free.
And
They're
shark-free.
beautiful and they're fresh. And when you've grown up and spent your whole life in these freshwater, humongous sea-like lakes, the first time I remember as a child, the first time going down to Florida and actually getting into an ocean, I was so startled by the salt. Because in the fresh water, you don't want to drink it, but if you get it in your mouth, it's just water. But stepping into a sea is totally different. So yes, absolutely. Salt-free and shark-free.
Got it. One thing that makes you laugh and say only in Western Michigan.
Oh, we are only in Western Michigan will you find a church on about every single corner. We have many shapes, sizes, places to worship. Anything you can imagine, you can find a place that you can call home. And I don't laugh at them, I laugh with, because it's something we all that live here, we all know. And it's a common statement. There's a church on every corner. You'll find someplace you can find a home. So that's a little kind of inside joke for West Michigan.
Okay. And then if you had to summarize West Michigan in just 3 words, what 3 words are you going to choose?
Friendly, beautiful, or let's use a better word than that. Picturesque and
Okay.
classy.
Okay. Now you've got to tell me about classy and
Because
why you
there's
think
so much, a lot of places that you go to that maybe are touristy places, there's just the touristy stuff to do. And
Yep.
even though we have touristy stuff, we have so much classy stuff. The Meyer Gardens are just top ranked. It's just beautiful. And we have the arts represented in so many ways, shapes, and forms. You can just become educated. Anywhere you go, there's opportunity to learn and to take in the arts, the music. We have a symphony in Grand Rapids. We have a symphony in Holland. So there's all the arts are represented. So maybe classy, maybe artistic. I don't know.
Okay.
3 words isn't enough, Chris.
It's why we make you choose.
Can I come back on next week and interrupt your guest and say, I've thought of 3 better words?
No. Our guest again has been Veronica Bareman from hipgrandmalife.com and veronicajunphotography.com. And Veronica, if we wanted to send people to your best post on West Michigan, where are we going to send them?
We are going to send them to, oh gosh, I've written many posts about the beaches and the lakes and the things to do, places to go. You're big on making me choose. I'm going to say the great big list of free and fun things to do in Holland, Michigan, because that's going to steer you to dog-friendly places,
Excellent.
beaches, restaurants, all the attractions we talked about that are in Holland. That right now is probably going to be my best choice. Excellent.
We'll put a link to that in the show notes so that people won't have to look for it even. Veronica, thanks so much for coming on Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your obvious love for West Michigan.
Well, thank you for having me, Chris. It's been a pleasure.
First, let me apologize for my voice. I came back from a trip to Greece that you'll hear more about probably next week with this cold. So not COVID this time, so that's good news, but I'm still recovering from that. Special thanks go out to the patrons of the show who help support Amateur Traveler financially. I'm looking forward to doing the monthly Zoom call with them on this Saturday, just after this comes out. If you're interested in becoming a patron of the show or just learning more about it, go to patreon.com/amateurtraveler. I did pull the plug on the trip to Japan this year. Only one person signed up. It's my fault. I just didn't give you enough notice. We'll try and do a 1-year notice ahead as we did for the trip to Morocco, which filled up in 2 days. So it seems like people need more notice. So just an update on that. And with that, we're going to end this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email to host@amateurtraveler.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And thanks so much for listening.